We're not flip-flopping. As I rightly pointed out, it's a matter of principle, and we're not going to be in favor of everything that is just poking the English community included in Bill 96. We're not changing our position on that.
Yeah, maybe not so much. That is Éric Duhaime, leader of the Provincial Conservative Party. He was on with Elias this morning on this whole issue of flip-flopping, because you may remember, as Elias pointed out, that 4 years ago, or back in 2022, it was this same Éric Duhaime, and remember the old no to Bill 96 with the red sort of arrow or the red line through it? That was his idea, remember?
Well, we were trying to think about, how could we express our difference between us and the other parties, since we are the only ones who want to repeal Bill 96. We thought that, having such a sign was appropriate.
Yeah, they thought it was appropriate, David Heurtel, 4 years ago. They don't think it's so appropriate right now. How is that not a flip-flop exactly?
It's a total flip-flop, Aaron. End of story. Look, the difference between now and 2022 is that right now, if an election were held tomorrow, Éric Duhaime, according to Philippe Fournier's Quebec 125, would win 10 seats. The problem is those 10 seats are not on the West Island and Laval. They are in the Quebec City region and the Chaudière-Appalaches region, where he is edging ahead based on this new nationalism stance that he's been developing for a few months now. That's it. He's going to dance now with the one that brung him. In 2022, he had some interesting progress with English-speaking Quebecers. He was making inroads. And especially with the then flip-flop, because we have to identify so many flip-flops on 96 with the Quebec Liberal Party. But remember back in 22, before the 22 election, you had that whole mess. Remember Hélène David and David Birnbaum?
Sure, yeah.
On 96. Yeah. And so that was an opening. And Éric Duhaime was actually developing that opening fairly well. And while he didn't threaten enough to challenge those seats in the West Island, a lot of Anglophones did stay home in the 22 election. And since then, you could talk about the by-election in Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne in 2023. And that was enough to lose Verdun, to lose Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne, but not enough to make Éric Duhaime a viable option for the English-speaking Quebecers. But now, over the last few years, he's developed this completely different position on Quebec autonomy, which is a much more hardline nationalist position. It's resonating with older regional Francophone voters, those Bernard Drainville voters at the CAQ. And so right now, for the first time since he became leader, and for the first time in decades, the Conservative Party of Quebec is seriously leading in 10 different ridings, but it has nothing to do with Anglophones anymore. So thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, by the way, this idea, and he said it again today, I mean, the shift, call it whatever you want, whether it's a flip-flop or not, all of a sudden, and I wonder if this is going to be the case for all the other parties, David, saying, it's not about us and we're not listening to Anglos or concerned. It's about the Liberals. They're letting you down, as if somehow that's their policy. They don't have one. They'll just point to the Liberals and say, hey, Anglos, aren't you sort of tired of being taken for granted by the Liberal Party? And hope that resonates. I think that's kind of a losing strategy, don't you?
It is a losing strategy, but again, the thing is that for a party like the Conservatives that has absolutely no chance, no shot in Montreal or in Laval or in the close ridings, the English, where there's a big English-speaking community, say along the South Shore of Montreal. For them, it's no longer a factor. So yeah, okay, Éric Duhaime's going to come and give an interview once in a while, but for him right now, he's seeing an opening in the regions, and that's what he's going to focus on. Period. And yeah. I agree. It's not there. There is no strategy for the English-speaking community with Éric Duhaime anymore. It's done. It's over. He doesn't care about that. He's made it very clear. And he's moving on, and so the English-speaking community is going to have to look, either with the Liberals or elsewhere to find resonance with their issues.
By the way, I saw a really interesting quote today. So Christine Frechette, who's been, we've talked about this before, David, gathering some, bit of momentum with some of the announcements, right? Letting her party know that, I think the line was, It's time for Quebecers to use their imagination. In other words, imagine this party without François Legault, to which one analyst simply said, I think he'd prefer the line, use your memory to consider what this party is. So it's getting interesting now, and we're still months away from an election, but it does seem to be gaining a bit of momentum now in terms of party leaders coming out. The only one I haven't heard a lot from lately is, in fact, Charles Milliard.
Exactly. Well, to be fair, Christine Fréchette, hasn't had to be in the National Assembly the last few weeks, right? And that stops Tuesday. So she's going to have a big speech, and we're going to come back. But then here's question period. And the parliamentary committees and the hearings on the budget. And we're gonna come back real quick, real hard, back to reality. And so it's going to be how bad the economy is. It's going to be about the Legault record, because when you're talking about memory, you're right. I mean, the thing is that it's not like she's coming completely from the outside like Mark Carney did. Christine Fréchette has been a Legault senior cabinet minister for the past 4 years. And so she is going to have to defend. She was there for Northvolt. She was there. She was there for everything. She was there on the identity politics. She was there on the immigration policy. And now we're going to hear about Bernard Drinville. Bernard Drinville is going to be there. He's going to be talking to journalists. So what about the third link? What about Simon-Jolin Barrette and his constitution? What about immigration? There are some fundamental differences there. And, there was the big caucus meeting of the CEQ that concluded today. There were a few M&As that weren't there. It wasn't a complete 100% show of unity here. There are still some M&As that aren't too happy about what happened since the race ended with the cabinet, and of course everything that's brewing around that Bernard Drinville strong showing. So again, like I said, we discussed this earlier this week, she's had a very good start. But again, next week and the next few weeks back in the National Assembly, it's 5 weeks where now the tires are going to hit the road.
The heat's about to come. I mean, there's no question, right? She's had a pretty easy run, as you said, and now we'll see, how she stands up.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see a different side of Christine Fréchette. Who knows? David, I want to mention, of course, today, beyond it being a big day because there's a playoff game tonight, it's going to be quite the evening in downtown Montreal. It is International Workers' Day today. Yeah. It's on the same day that we find out, of course, that the minimum, we knew this was coming, minimum wage in Quebec, $16.60 an hour as of today. Look, this discussion always comes up at this time, right, when we know that the rate's going to go up and people say this is not a living wage, we have to increase it more. What's your take on this? Is it ever going to change? Do you think governments are in a position to make it change?
Well, I think there's no choice. The income inequality is getting to a point where people actually cannot live. There were two very different takes, but put together, it's even more interesting. Yesterday, in La Presse, there was a study. I'm sorry, but I'm going to throw a few numbers at you. But so, University of Sherbrooke made a study of, if you live on minimum wage, you basically at $16.60 an hour, you basically make around $34,000 a year.
Right.
But with all the different government programs and assistance, it comes up that if you live alone, your net is close to $30,000. If you're a couple with one child, you have you're just over $38,000 a year. If you're a single parent, you have $45,000 a year. And if you're a couple with two kids, you have $59,520 a year. That's what's with minimum wage. But the problem with that is that the same day, that was yesterday, Radio-Canada published a study from I want to get the name right, the Institut de Recherche et d'Information Socio-Économique. I'm sorry, I don't have the full English term.
We're good.
And so what it did, it mapped out how much you need to actually be able to live in Montreal. And so if you're living alone, you need $41,500.
Right.
Now let's go back.
Yeah.
On minimum wage, you make close to $30,000 net.
You're not there.
You're not there. And I'll just go quickly to a couple with two kids with all the programs and everything you get back, you get 59,520. Well, the study in Montreal, if you're a couple with 2 kids, you need close to $90,000 to just be able to keep your head over the water.
Yeah.
So the answer is clear. So governments, and that's why we're talking, one of the other topics, I know we don't have time to get into it, but that's why governments are looking to privatize things like airports. That's why we're looking at fundamentally transforming the role of government and the role of the private sector. Because right now, and you were talking about, yesterday how the stock market is doing great. Record numbers for April, actually. But the stock market is not even close to being a real, true economic indicator. People are struggling. People are not able to keep their head above the water. And the water's rising. And so we're going to need fundamental transformation into the role of government and find a way to put more money in people's pockets, because this is not working. But ultimately, our system, it's been basically the same basic system since the 1980s, 1990s. We have to transform the system because the system itself is not working anymore.
It begs the question, David, and we have to go, if here we go again talking about a minimum guaranteed annual income for everybody to be able to deal with this. You're saying that the split is wider and wider every year. It's the biggest now it's ever been. Would that be a solution? I don't know. Maybe that's something governments look at. It's going to be a solution.
Just one other thing very quickly. We're going to have to rethink how we tax the super wealthy as well.
David Heurtel. David, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Go Habs, go!
Go Habs, go!
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.